Welcome to Critical Health News' weekly video Bright Bite with pharmacist Ben Fuchs. Ben, you mentioned last time power foods. Can I take a wild guess as to what those might be?
Sure, they're powerful foods.
They're powerful foods. I was thinking avocados, eggs, mushrooms. I've read a couple of your articles.
You're on the right track. But what is it that distinguishes a power food? What is it that makes a food a power food?
Well, I suppose it's something that's super nutritious.
In a sense, but just because something's super nutritious alone doesn't make it a power food. A power food is a food that gives you a bang for your buck. Buck being calories, bang being nutrition. And to understand what that means, that distinction between calories and nutrition, we got to talk about what is it that makes something a calorie and what is it that makes something nutritional. Okay? So we always talk about food and we talk about eating behaviors and we emphasize that eating less food is one of the greatest strategies for longevity. But it's not just eating less food, it's eating less calories. Now you're a computer guy and so you're going to appreciate this. What is a calorie? And it's the meaning of the word calorie, what a calorie really is hidden in the word calorie. Calor. What is calor? Calor is heat, right? In Spanish, Latin, calor means heat. A calorie is scientifically designated as a unit of heat. The body doesn't like heat. Fine-tuned machines don't like heat. What do you have to put in your hard drive in order to keep it in order to have it live a long life and keep it running cleanly? What do they have to put in the hard drive?
Watts,
a fan.
Essentially. Oh, a fan
to
keep
put
it cool.
A fan
to
keep it cool, right? I was in Santa Cruz a few months ago. I left my laptop in the car. It got really, really hot. And when I pulled it out to use it, it wasn't working. I had to cool it down so it would work. The screen got all wonky. Finely tuned machines don't run well under conditions of high heat. Animals that run hot tend to live shorter lives than animals that stay cool. Animals that run hot, mice and rodents and insects that move really fast, they live short lives. Animals that move really slow, like elephants and whales, they live longer lives. They run cool. So the human body works best when it runs cool. Calories mean heat. So when we talk about restricting the amount of food you eat, we're talking about really not restricting the amount of food you eat, but restricting the amount of calories you eat to keep your body running cool. A power food is a food that has lots of nutritional value without costing you a lot of calories. You follow? So you want to make sure that in order to live a long life or in order to improve your health or in order to stay healthy, you want to make sure that you're getting lots of nutrition and you're keeping your calories down. That means you're getting a lot of bang and nutritional value for your buck calories. Follow? So a power food is a food with lots of nutritional value, low calories. And that's the best way to eat. That way you get all the nutrients you need without having to have your body run hot in order to process those nutrients. So you want to look for foods that are low calorie, high nutrition. And there's a few of them. One of my favorite is yeast, nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast has every single thing a living entity needs to stay alive because nutritional yeast is a living cell. A yeast cell is a cell. It has all the nutrients that a cell needs to stay alive, whether it's a plant cell, animal cell, human cell, or whatever kind of cell, because it is a cell. So yeast is your first most important power food. Along the same lines, oysters. And by the way, yeast has almost no calories to it, so you get almost pure nutrition. Oysters are another living food. You're eating live cells when you eat an oyster. And an oyster is packed with protein, it's packed with zinc, it's packed with vitamin E. Trick with oysters, it's not as easy to find as nutritional yeast. You got to go to a restaurant to get it, or you got to shuck your own oysters, so they're a little bit trickier. I don't put them on my top 9 list of power foods because of their inconvenience, but they're along the same lines as yeast. They're a living food. They contain everything you need to stay alive, everything a cell needs to stay alive, and they don't have very many calories. So they meet the definition of a power food, but they're a little bit inconvenient. Eggs, another power food. Low calorie, high nutrition, and as you know, an egg is not an egg, it's an egg cell. It's another cell, so it has everything you need to stay alive. It has everything a cell needs to stay alive, and has very little nutrition. Eggs also have the advantage of being convenient. One trick with eggs is you've got to cook your eggs, or you don't have to cook your eggs, but most people cook their eggs, and so you lose some of the nutritional value when you cook with eggs. So you want to ideally eat your eggs raw. Crack a raw egg into a smoothie, and if you think that's not delicious, think again. Raw eggs are very delicious. If you mix them in with other foods, they actually have a nice creamy, kind of vanilla-like texture to your food, especially to your smoothies. By the way, eggs have emulsifiers in them, so if you're mixing oil with your smoothies, they can make your smoothies nice and creamy. You can blend the oil in with the protein very effectively. Sprouts and wheatgrass. Both sprouts and wheatgrass are power foods. They're both living foods or close to living foods. They both have everything, again, everything you need to keep a cell alive, and they're very low in nutrition. Wheatgrass is a little tricky. You got to juice wheatgrass, so it's not quite as efficient or not quite as convenient to use wheatgrass. But if you can do wheatgrass juice, even though it's a drink and not a food, it is a powerful, powerful food substance that is low in calories, super high in nutrition. Likewise with sprouts. You know, last program we talked about the problem with seeds, but what we didn't mention is when you add water to a seed, that seed becomes a sprout. And it goes from being a food that is problematic to the most powerful food, or among the most powerful foods you could ever ingest. It becomes a living food. It goes from a dormant sleeping food with sleepy time chemicals, we called them anti-nutrients last week, into a living food with protein and B vitamins and enzymes and all the nutrients you need to stay alive. So sprouts are another power food, high nutrition, low in calories. Algae and spirulina, another power food. They're like the grass of the ocean. So they have all the properties that grass has, with an added benefit in that they're highly electrical because they're sitting on the surface of the ocean. And over the course of millions of years, they figured out how to manipulate solar energy and turn it into electrical energy. So they're highly electrical substances. They're supercharged substances that have a protective effect, especially a sun protective effect, and they're loaded with nutritional value. Proteins and enzymes and amino acids and fats and B vitamins. Again, every single nutrient that you need to stay alive, including all of the ocean minerals, very low calories. You can use seaweed products very efficiently by buying dried seaweed that you can buy in an Asian market or a health food store, and just crushing it up and putting on salad or make it into a snacky kind of substance. It has a sort of salty, crisp flavor to it, so it's very tasty, relatively inexpensive, and it's loaded with nutrition. Fish in general are a power food. Fish are low calorie, relatively low calorie, and they have the advantage of providing a very easy to absorb protein. Fish are an animal food, and they're loaded with protein. They're also loaded, if you don't cook them too much anyway, they're loaded with good fats, and they've got all the vitamins and B vitamins and water-soluble vitamins and fat-soluble vitamins that you need to stay alive, in addition to essential fatty acids that are only pretty much found in seaweed products, DHA and EPA, which are very important for the brain and for the eyes and for the nervous system. Fish are a little bit inconvenient because you got to cook it, but canned sardines, canned herring, and canned tuna fish absolutely counts as a power food. Now, they're mostly, once you can your fishes, canned tuna fish in particular, doesn't have a lot of the vitamins in it, especially the water-soluble vitamins, although it does have some because the canning process kind of destroys some of these B vitamins and vitamin C, but you still get great fats in there, you get great protein in there as well. Bodybuilders' favorite food, by the way, we used to use tuna fish, cans of tuna fish. When I was back in my bodybuilding days, we used to use cans of tuna fish when we came home from the gym. Cans of sardines, cans of herring, they're inexpensive, they're cheap, and they definitely qualify as a power food, although the caloric content is a little bit higher than some of the other power foods we're talking about. Olives, another power food. Snack on olives, great source of good fats, great source of fatty vitamins, especially vitamin E. There's vitamin A in there, some vitamin D in there. They're tasty, they're inexpensive, easy to snack on, a wonderful power food. Whey protein, another power food. Now, I said whey protein, not whey. Sometimes people get confused between whey and whey protein. Whey protein is the protein fraction of whey. Whey is a component of milk, and it's high in protein, but it has other factors in there as well, particularly sugars. But whey protein is just the protein taken out of the whey, and the protein content of whey is singular in the sense that it's loaded with growth factors. Only whey protein has growth factors that are found that the mother passes on to the baby. And when I say only whey protein, dairy protein in general, but the whey is the protein fraction of the dairy. So that's like the nugget, the protein nugget in of the entire dairy product, whether you're talking about milk or whether you're talking about kefir or yogurt. The whey fraction is what contains the protein. And whey protein has everything you need to build muscle, to build tissue, to fight bacteria, to kill bacteria, to grow. It's got growth factors. There's a lot of times vegetarians will say, well, you can get the same kind of protein value and amino acids from soy and from broccoli, and if you eat macrobiotically, etc. But what they're missing is the fact that only whey, and to a certain extent egg, contain growth factors that accelerate healing and that stimulate growth and and have anti-aging properties. Soy doesn't have that, beans don't have that, while some of these vegetarian-type proteins do have the same amino acids or similar amino acids, they miss the growth factors. So that makes whey protein a unbelievably important power food for building and for repair and for anti-aging. The problem with whey protein that makes it a little bit different from some of these other power foods is whey protein is highly processed. In order to extract the protein out of the whey, you've got to use some pretty heavy-duty processing. So it's a little bit different than some of these other power foods. Last but not least, for power foods, mushrooms. Now, mushrooms are really interesting because mushrooms not only are nutritionally valuable, not only do they have good nutrients, particularly protein and also vitamins, and vitamin D, which is a very hard to find vitamin, except for in fish, but mushrooms also have tremendous medicinal value, anti-cancer properties, anti-infective properties. They also have blood-thinning properties. They also have, blood-cleaning properties, I should say. And they also have an ability to help lower blood fats and lower blood cholesterol. They contain a component called beta-glucan, which is unbelievably medicinal. And in Chinese medicine, for example, mushrooms are actually considered medicine as much as they're considered food. So, in the words of Hippocrates, let food be your medicine and let medicine be your food. Nothing allows you to exploit that slogan more than mushrooms, which are, in essence, as much medicines as they are foods.
I realize avocados sit on the higher calorie side of things.
That's what keeps them from being a power food, although they are wonderfully nutritional. Now, obviously, we need calories. I'm not saying you don't want to have any calories, but what you want to do is you want to look for relatively lower calories and relatively higher nutrients. And making that distinction is extremely important when it comes to making food choices. You want to pick foods that have lots of nutritional value, but don't cost you a lot of don't require a lot of interaction with calories, a lot of interaction with heat. And that's why avocados don't quite make the list as important as they are.
Now, would spices be considered a power food?
In a sense, but the problem with why they're not really a power food is you can't eat scoops of spices. If you could take a scoop of spices, and eat a scoop of cinnamon or a scoop of clove or a scoop of cumin or something, yes, indeed, that would be a power food. But because you just sprinkle them on top of foods, they're more like a power food enhancer. They're like a power booster, power food booster, than a power food.
Well, Ben, I foresee that someday you and I might collaborate on a recipe book. Everything you described is roughly what I prefer to eat and prefer to cook. Yeah.
Good. You intuitively know. You intuitively understood. Now, interestingly, over the last 200 years as a culture, what we figured out how to do in a very efficient, highly technological way is separate the calories from the nutrients. We call a food that is just calories without nutrients a junk food. That's the definition of a junk food, a food that has a high amount of calories with a low amount of nutrients. And a junk food is the opposite of a power food. A food that has just the right amount of nutrients matched up with the calories is called a whole food. And this is the advantage to eating whole foods, is you get just the right amount of nutrients that allow you to utilize the calories. And that's why you want to eat as much whole foods as possible. Power food is like an extreme whole food.
I think it's funny that we keep having these discussions about food round about lunchtime.
Nice.
By the end of it,
now you know what to go eat.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm ravenous.
Get some olives.
I will actually. That's
and
exactly
sprinkle
what
yeast on top of it.
I'm out of yeast. I haven't had that for a while, but we used to put it on popcorn.
Oh, it's awesome on popcorn and salads. It has a great flavor to it, doesn't it?
What are your thoughts on like a liquid amino or amino acid?
Like Bragg's liquid amino?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
More like a spice, but it's a power spice. They're wonderful. It is highly processed. Doesn't really count as a food necessarily, but it's definitely it meets the criteria in the sense that it's low calorie and high nutritional value.
Well, great, Ben. I'm absolutely starving. Thank you very much for your time once again.
Go ahead. Enjoy your lunch.